What is up guys, Taiki here, and today I'd like to give an update on DeFi Kingdoms, Jewel, and the Luna ecosystem and the Astroport Lockdrop. So if you like the content, please like and subscribe and leave a comment in the comment section below. So let's get started. Okay, so obviously DeFi Kingdoms, saving the rest of my portfolio, pushing all-time highs, hit $12. I think it almost hit $13 yesterday. But this remains my highest commission farm. I've been in it, like it's one of the most comfiest farms I can be part of, right? I mean, all I've been doing is I'm just like going into the gardens, just letting it sit, and just Jewel keeps going up, right? It's crazy. It's an amazing feeling to farm something that people actually like want to buy and kind of need to buy in order to play the game. And I'll kind of touch on the gaming aspect later too. But this chart is up only for now, right? For now, is this a good buy right now? I have no idea. But me, I'm just farming it, right? I don't really stress out too much, right? I've heard all the FUD about like, oh my god, aren't you worried XYZ is going to cause the price of Jewel to dump? And like maybe it will, right? But I really don't care because I have a mid to longer term time horizon on this one, and my simple strategy is to just keep farming it, right? Just keep farming it, and I don't really care about the price volatility. I mean, like for me, I just kind of check up on my farms like once every few days, and I just like, oh yeah, Jewel is going up. It's kind of a crazy feeling. But I often argue that I think Jewel and the DeFi Kingdoms farm is just a good farm, right? Objectively a good farm, because like I'll talk about Luna later, but like, are you bullish on Luna? Because I'm bullish Luna, right? I've been bullish Luna for a long time now, and if you want exposure to Luna, right, but you're kind of worried about like maybe some price volatility, right, just because it's gone up a lot, right? I mean, look, okay, like first of all, look at Luna, right? You go to the weekly, you look at log, and like, what is this, right? This is ridiculous, right? I mean, like, what is going on? Like on January 4th, the weekly open for this was 66 cents, right? And it's at $80. So obviously we've had a crazy alt season. I don't know how long this alt season is gonna last, but in the meantime, if you want exposure to Luna, maybe this farm is a good one, right? Just earn 540% on an asset, Luna, which is just going up, right? And Jewel, which is also going up, nice and comfy. How about Jewel and ETH? Are you bullish ETH? Because I'm bullish ETH. Well, like why not put some, paired up some Jewel with some ETH if you're worried about downside protection and whatnot, or downside volatility. And obviously none of this financial advice, right? I'm just some Asian guy on the internet. But I mean, Jewel, like highest commission farm, it actually flipped ETH in my portfolio. So I think roughly 86% of my portfolio is Bitcoin, DeFi Kingdoms, ETH, and Luna, right? So the markets have been kind of weak, right? And Bitcoin and the ETH hasn't done too well, but like generally, like the most of my exposure is like in these assets that are doing well. So there's that, and I don't really have exposure to AVAX, and I'm probably gonna enter this farm in the new year, right? Just because I'm in the Jewel 1 and Jewel USDC pool, right? Which is like just awful decisions, but I entered it like months ago, so I couldn't foresee Jewel going up this much, but I don't have too much exposure to AVAX, right? I've been farming AVAX since August and whatnot, but it's not like a huge portfolio, right? I mean, farming is a slow way to build up your bags, but it's not like the fast way to just like build up an AVAX position. So in the new year, I think I'm gonna enter this one, right? Just so I can have AVAX exposure, and if I can farm Jewel, holding Jewel and AVAX at 500%, why not do so, right? And these are other good farms too. Maybe you're just like a lower, you have a lower risk tolerance, or and then you can just enter Bitcoin ETH. I think these are just good farms, right? It's just objectively good farms. So, I continue to be bullish Jewel, right? My thesis has not changed. I mean, the team continues to ship. More users begin onboarding. Like the heroes are like selling for insane amounts. And I think it's one of those things. I've been saying it for some time. Like I think it's like one of the most obvious plays in crypto that most people will fade just because they'll convince themselves that they're like too late or something. And I said this when Jewel was like $8, right? And like at $12, like what is a good buy? I have no idea, right? I don't do price predictions. I don't trade, right? All I do is farm. But if you think about the potential narratives, right? Because crypto is driven on narratives. DeFi Kingdoms kind of has it all, right? It's DeFi, it's cross-chain, right? They're going to go to a bunch of EVM chains, first starting with AVAX, maybe expanding to Matic, BSC, and Phantom, right? I think those kind of make sense. So it's a cross-chain DeFi game that's play to earn with utility NFTs that's actually selling for like crazy amounts. And I'll kind of go over heroes later, because like in the first couple of months, right, in the 3 months I've been in this farm, like I haven't really played the game, right? I missed out on the Gen 0 hero mint. I gave away my Gen 0 hero that's like worth like 70k now. But I'm looking into the market, right, and trying to buy some heroes myself. And I was also on CNBC talking about Jewel, so check out that clip on YouTube if anyone's interested. I'm joking, but anyways, but what you should check out actually is JEWELCast, right? I was on this episode on the 16th, and one of the reasons I really like DeFi Kingdoms is just purely on the fact that they're like a bunch of YouTubers that only specifically cover DeFi Kingdoms, and there's a community of Jewel lovers, I guess, that actually created a community podcast called JEWELCast. Just the fact that these communities are popping up without like the Jewel or the DeFi Kingdoms team like having to compensate for these folks, just shows you how strong of a community it is. And if you need any more evidence that there's a bunch of people, there's a bunch of eyeballs and money in this game, just understand that the floor for Gen Zero heroes is roughly $60,000 to $70,000 at this point, right? Which is pretty insane given that roughly 2 months ago, or maybe 2.5 months ago, you could mint them for like $1,500, right? I still cope like having missed them. Like I still cope missing out on that, right? Because I knew about it, I saw it, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna farm Jewel, and I'm happy, right? Obviously, but it definitely hurts. It definitely hurts knowing that I could have done it. But speaking of heroes, I wasn't too interested in like the fishing and the foraging quests. I'm more interested in the mining and the gardening quests, and the gardening quests are going to come December 22nd, and the mining quests are going to come the 29th of December. So TLDR, for those that don't know, and don't get me wrong, I'm not an expert in this either, but essentially the gardening quest is that if you do gardening quests, you can essentially boost your APRs on your Jewel farms, essentially. So your heroes, right? Your gardener heroes could have utility, right? Because maybe it costs like $3,000 to $4,000 to buy a hero, but maybe it creates more value because it's going to increase your APR by X%. We don't know these numbers yet, by X%. And if you given like the unlock schedule, maybe it's worth your capital, right? So gardeners, I'm pretty excited for. I might buy one. In the miners, I think miners have gotten like a huge premium in the open market, just because what miners allow you to do in the mining quest is that it's going to allow you to unlock your locked jewels much faster. So if you've been farming this for a while, like the amount of locked jewel that like we all have is insane, right? It's like crazy amounts of money. But it's locked until July of 2022, and then it's going to be linearly vested, I believe, for 12 months. In roughly July, right? Depending on the Harmony block times. So right now, I think the majority of the premium is being placed on the miners, just because I think people just want to unlock their locked jewel. But recently, there's been a huge price surge in the gardener heroes. And I'll kind of go over, if you go to the tavern, you can kind of see this. Right? I kind of filtered for Sage Gardeners, which I think is one of the best. And right now, the floor is 324, right? Which in my mind I'm like, okay, that's only 300 jewel, but I kind of I always forget that one jewel is $12. It's kind of crazy, but it's kind of crazy that these heroes are like being listed for like these these prices, right? I mean, this I think this is like a mythic or legendary. It's like 15,000 jewel. Like what? That's like 200k. My God, like USD. That's crazy. But it's kind of funny too, because I mean. The game itself is like one of those things where like I know I can make more money if I like learned it, but I just like haven't had the time, right? And I don't fully understand all of this, right? But if you like just go to the tavern and kind of scroll through all these heroes, I'm like, damn, like Erestrum Freebone kind of looks cool, It's just like, oh, it's only 500 jewel. I mean, that's $6,000. It's kind of wild. And right now it's kind of based on speculation, just because I mean the gardening quests are going to come the 22nd and the mining quest the 29th. But I also said like, oh, these heroes are way too expensive when they were like $3,000, right? So like, what the hell do I know? But Jewel, comfiest farms in all of crypto. Let me just refresh the price. I think it's like roughly $12. Yep, $12. And I still think that it's a great way for you to gain exposure to these L1s, right? If you're bullish AVAX, just farm this. If you're bullish ETH, maybe you can farm this. Luna, etc. Right? And there's a Crystalvale expansion coming in Q1 to Avalanche. And yes, there's going to be some dilution, right? Because they're going to be introducing new heroes and new tokens. But I think the incremental demand that's going to come out of the Avalanche expansion is going to be, it's going to outweigh the supply increase. Because right now, like DeFi Kingdoms is in a Harmony, right? And like, who uses Harmony? Like no one uses Harmony outside of DeFi Kingdoms, and there aren't that many users on Harmony, right? So if they do expand to a top tier chain like AVAX, then you can imagine that there's a bunch of people that never thought about entering DeFi Kingdoms. They're gonna see it and be like, oh wow, this is actually cool. Okay, it kind of makes sense why all these people were shilling it to me like a few weeks or a few months ago. But Jewel, keep farming it. Okay, so let's go back into Luna, right? And I think Luna and AVAX are having the top performers when it comes to just all of crypto, right? And when it comes to like top 30 assets and whatnot. And I continue to be, like bullish Luna. I think it's got a lot of catalysts coming up. We've had the Astroport Lockdrop coming on, which I'll talk about. And then we have Mars, the Lockdrop happening in Q1, right? Hopefully in January. And I think those two are going to be huge catalysts just because right now in the Terra ecosystem, there really isn't like a premier DEX. TerraSwap is okay, but like no one likes TerraSwap, right? No one's bullish TerraSwap. So Astroport, which is going to be Uniswap, Curve, and Balancer all in one product, I think it's going to command a lot of attention and a lot of TVL. And speaking of which, I mean, this over $1 billion of liquidity was added to the Lockdrop before it's even launched, right? That's kind of crazy to think about. I think at current TVL levels, I think Astroport is already like a top 15 DEX in all of crypto, and it hasn't even launched yet. So it kind of goes to show you how much appetite there is for the Terra ecosystem. I mean, we've been waiting this for a long time, right? We knew this was coming for months, and now it's finally here, and people are just going bananas over it. And Terra roughly, let me just refresh this. It's at number 9, right? And if you don't count stablecoin, it's number 7. And I've often mentioned that I think Luna could be a top 5 coin, right? And not counting like Tether and USDC, right? Because I don't consider them investable assets. So for Terra to get to top 5, all it has to do is flip XRP, right? At $40 billion of market cap, which I don't understand that. But anyways, Luna roughly at $30 billion. All it has to do is outperform Cardano and XRP by 33%, right? And it's gonna flip them, right? Like it's happening, right? I think it's gonna happen. Maybe I'm too bullish, right? I often tell my viewers like, I'm like overly bullish when it comes to Luna and DeFi kingdoms. So maybe take what I say with a grain of salt. But I'm human, right? I have emotions, and I just love Luna and Jewel. As you can obviously see, I'm making a video on this. But I think Luna and AVAX can flip XRP and Cardano over time. I don't want to bash Cardano too much, just because I'm just like not a fan of assets that you just like can't use, right? I just like don't understand it, how it has such a high valuation. But maybe when it does launch smart contracts, like whenever, right? Maybe it's 2022, 2023, and like actual apps are live, and like there's a thriving ecosystem. Maybe I'll change my mind. And I mentioned that like when Cardano has farms, I'm gonna enter farms, just because I think people are going to be way too euphoric, and it's going to be a great environment for farmers that's going to take profits, if you know what I mean. So there's that. Kind of crazy because Polkadot was also flipped by both Terra and AVAX. But Terra and AVAX, great ecosystems. But anyways, let's move on. I don't want this to be another 20 to 30 minute video, which it's probably going to be one. Yeah, it's probably going to be one anyways. Let's kind of go over to Lockdrop. So it's going to have 3 phases, right? Phase 0, Phase 1, and Phase 2. And Phase 0 essentially means like, early Terra users are going to get airdrops, right, for Astroport. And if you were staking Luna or had B Luna on Anchor on September 9th at this time, you're going to get an airdrop. And also if you were being a liquidity provider on TerraSwap, you're also going to get an airdrop, right, as long as you did it on September 9th. So I did this, right? So I'm going to get this airdrop. And I was also farming on Mirror, right? Mirror Finance and TerraSwap is the same thing. So if you were farming on Mirror, if you're long farming on Mirror, you're going to be eligible for the airdrop. I don't know how much it's going to be. I always insisted that I think it's going to be like roughly 4 figures. But I think it's going to be roughly around that. Hopefully it's a lot more. But I don't do price predictions, but I think Astroport, I think it can be like a $500 million protocol, right? And I think that's being conservative. Astro is a Uniswap, Curve, and Balancer all in one. They have no competition. It's going to lock up all TVL. I mean, come on. It locked up $1 billion in TVL pre-launch. That's kind of crazy. And this is how I locked up my LP positions. So my B Luna stake, right? This is essentially all my Luna holdings. It's essentially a position with no impermanent loss risk. So I'm kind of thinking of it as a way to stake my Luna to receive Astro allocations, and I staggered my locks in 3 buckets: 2 months, 4 months, and 6 months. And I'm probably not going to sell my Luna in on February, right? Whenever this thing unlocks. But I think the additional flexibility that I can have by just like staggering it is worth a lot more, right? Because originally I was going to do 6 months, right, for all my position, but a bunch of people smarter than me convinced me otherwise. And Ink UST, right? I farmed Ink over time, right? I'm just gonna lock it up for 52 weeks. I don't really care. PSI UST, I got PSI as an airdrop. It's probably gonna keep dumping, but I'll just lock it up for 52 weeks and just farm as much Astro as possible. So there's that. And there's a great video by Dankuar, right? I had him on my channel a few times. He primarily covers the Luna ecosystem, and he shared this interesting graphic, which I thought was interesting, right? Make sure to subscribe to him. Maybe I'll have him on my channel again relatively soon. But essentially, this is like the majority of this graph is showing like how much or how long people locked up their LP positions on at the Astroport Lockdrop. And it seems like most of the people either did like 2 to 4 weeks or 50 to 52 weeks, which is kind of insane, right? There's like no one in the middle. I'm kind of in this bucket right in the middle because I just kind of hate locking up my assets for that long. But you know, maybe they're gonna get a bunch of Astro and like they're gonna make more money than me. Like who knows? Just an interesting graphic that I found useful, or I thought it was interesting. And you know, you also have to understand that like the B Luna pool, right? Not only am I staking it essentially or locking it to receive Astro, right now I'm also earning 12.37%, right, on this position, which is pretty insane, right? And I'll provide a link in the description for this dashboard. You know, when Astroport launches, this is probably gonna like get scrapped, right? Because you know this UI isn't that great, and Astroport's gonna just like take up all the it's gonna gobble up all the TVL essentially. But it's a good way to look at like, okay, what is the APR from swap fees, right? Because there is no TerraSwap token. And I think phase 2 is something I'm going to go over more, just because I think it's a little confusing. But you know, because you know these long drops, these phases last 7 days, you don't necessarily have to enter them immediately, right? You can kind of let the market decide, and you can let the market settle, and then figure out what you want to do. Like I'm personally not going to rush into this like tomorrow and just like, you know, ape into like the first day. I'm probably going to enter this like maybe, you know, day 4, day 3 or something. But this is essentially a way for there to be price discovery on the Astro token. So if you go back to the original Medium article, right, about Astroport, the token allocations, you see that phase 2 is going to provide the initial liquidity for Astro tokens, and they will also act like a price discovery period for Astro tokens, which I think is pretty interesting. So let's kind of go over what this actually means. So let's assume that, you know, when it launches, it's the pool has 100 UST and 100 Astro, right? It's just 100 of each. So the implied price for Astro is $1, right? Because there's, you know, 1 UST for every 1 Astro. If someone thinks, right, that, you know, if someone believes that Astro should be worth more than $1, a user can deposit 100 UST into this pool. And then after that, the pool composition is going to be 200 UST and 100 Astro. And then the implied Astro price is going to be $2. And I have no idea what the price of Astro is going to do. I'm probably just going to take all my Astro that I'm going to get and just like dump it in there at some point. But I think it's pretty cool, right? I think it's pretty cool. It kind of prevents front running by whales. It's a way for there to be like, you know, it's like natural price discovery, because, you know, once you like lock it up, I don't think you can like, you know, withdraw it for some time. Where after the lock drop, I think it gets linearly vested for 3 months or something. But you know, on the other hand, if the implied price of Astro is $1 and someone thinks that's way too expensive, then anyone can just place 100 Astro and then the implied price is, you know, 0.5 UST. Or if you think that's a fair value, then you can put 100 UST, 100 Astro. So the pool composition is, you know, just one. The ratio is 1:1, and then, you know, the implied Astro price is 1 USD. I have no idea what the price is going to be, right? I'm just gonna just throw it in there. But you know, I think roughly $500 million in market cap for this token kind of makes sense. I feel like it's a conservative estimate, but I think it's better to be conservative and then to just have like crazy moonshot targets. And you know, I'll also provide a description, a link in the description for, you know, this tool, right? It's a pretty cool tool. So, you know, for me, I'm in this one, right? So kind of I'm thinking about like, okay, how much Astro am I going to receive? And it doesn't really capture, you know, what's in the middle, right? So I locked up mine for 2, 4, 6 months, and it kind of only shows data for 2 weeks and 52 weeks. But maybe I'm in the roughly 30 to 50 Astro tokens per $1,000 of LP. And you know, this pool is like oversubscribed, and this is $500 million already. So maybe I'm not going to get too much. But you know, like in my mind, I'm just taking my Luna that I'm not going to sell anyways, and just staking it, locking it, and just earning Astro tokens, you know, for free, I guess. So that's kind of how I think about it. Yeah, and yeah, there's this website too. It's kind of, there's a bunch of errors. I'll provide a link in the description, but you know, it's kind of like an Astro. Yeah, it's not loading, but it's kind of like an Astro calculator. So depending on the price of Astro, like how much rewards can you get, right? So you know, all these tools are there. I think, you know, the data is going to get better over time. But you know, Luna, Jewel, bullish. You know, very bullish. The entire markets aren't looking that great, but you know, Luna and UX doing well. Spell is also doing well. I'm farming that too. And Jewel obviously doing great. So thank you guys for watching. Have fun farming out there. And yeah, 20-minute video. Standard techie stuff. Thank you guys for watching, and have fun farming out there.